We're here talking about the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders and Thursday Night Football. Let's get it on. Hello, everybody. Thank you for spending your nice Tuesday evening with us here tonight, talking to Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears. I'm joined with Lester Wiltfong from the Windy City Gridiron of SB Nation. How you doing, Lester?
Doing pretty good. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Can't complain. He's also host of the Second Gridiron Gang podcast as well, video podcast as well. So that's good to kind of talk about that as well. So, Lester, you hear about the Chicago Bears? We have a big game on Thursday.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're feeling in Chicago. Are they up for this game, or how are they feeling about that over there?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it's a winnable game for the Bears. I mean, obviously, the same can be said from you guys, but it's a game that the Bears, they should be in. I mean, they're a rebuilding franchise. They're going through some stuff right now, but coming off that Viking game, I think fans are a little more positive than they were earlier this season.
Very good. Yeah, you guys definitely had a pretty strong schedule to start off the year. You had the Packers, the 49ers, the Giants, the Vikings. The Viking game was actually pretty engaging. I actually was watching some film getting prepared for this podcast. You guys were down, I believe, 18 points at one point in the game, and you guys came back and
skip that first half. You're gonna watch that. First half was awful. Yeah,
100%. So, what's your takeaway? So, how do you feel about that game? I guess the first half you want to kind of put that in the back burner, right? But everything else, I mean, are people positive about the game? Was there some good takeaways from the game? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean the last time the Bears won a game was against the Texans, and even though the Bears won that game, a lot of fans were down because the offense just was stumbling the whole time. Justin Fields wasn't really doing too much, and I was talking a little bit before is this season is all about Justin Fields. It's all about the offense, all about showing that he could be the man moving forward. And that Texan game was a little discouraging, even though they won. But this last game against the Vikings, I think he was like 13 of 15 in the second half. He really worked within the offense. That's something he hasn't done. He's kind of held the ball a little too long. He's still trying to understand what's going on with his pass protection up front. His receivers aren't the best, but this last game, he really took what the defense gave him. He went to the check down when he had to. He scrambled when he had to. And he really was finally, for the first time all year, really working within the confines in the offense.
Gotcha. So what do you think the biggest barrier for him to get over to be successful? Do you think it is that he just has a tough time reading defenses possibly, or is it more like he doesn't? I don't know. Just give me your insight, I guess, because he seems like a pretty able quarterback.
He seems to be a tick slow in his processing right now, but that could be part of the new offense. He's being asked to do something different than he was a year ago with Matt Nagy. Obviously, when he was in college, I mean, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the game. But I mean, for being honest, his receiving core he had at Ohio State's probably better than the group he has now with the Bears. So, he's still working through some stuff. He's working through some pass protection issues.
Yeah,
the Bears did try and revamp that O-line, but they didn't do a very good job. It's appearing to be that way. But the pass pro is better. And he's part of the pass pro as well. He has to know where the guy's coming from on the free blitz. He has to get that thing set right. So it's just a matter of just him. It's just a slow learning curve, which, as quarterbacks, it's the development at that spot is not linear. It takes these guys some time, and it just may take Justin Fields a little bit. I mean, we're seeing Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, who started off the year good. Now he's back in a slump. So these quarterbacks will have ups and downs, and Justin Fields is just like that.
I understand. And I guess before we kind of pivot to other questions, so Justin Field, how's he perceiving the fan base? Are people kind of supporting him? Are they kind of optimistic? Are they kind of getting negative at this point? Or what's the overall perception of him?
And there was a little negativity towards the early part of the year because, I mean, the Bears, their offense was the passing game, historically bad. I mean, it's like the first game was a monsoon against the Niners, so that's hard to take anything out of that. But then the next two games, deeper, but 10 completions. It's just like, the numbers are like a national joke as far as how poor the passing game was. But the last 2 weeks, he's shown a little bit. Like I said, this last game, it's finally starting to click a little bit. And, I'm sure those numbers are going to go up. And, plus they have a first-time play call, Luke Getsy, just the way that, he has a defensive-minded head coach. So, the game scripts kind of seem to skew more run heavy. But as he gains the trust of his play caller and his head coach, I think we'll start to see that flip a little bit.
Gotcha. I was actually wondering about that. So obviously Matt Nagy was there for about 4 years. There's sort of ups and downs, and there were some pretty good times. 12-4 at one point. You guys went to the playoffs twice. I kind of see a little apprehension in your face as well. So we can kind of talk about that as well. So I guess I'm curious. So, as a Washington fan, what was your perception of Matt Nagy, and how do you like this new era with Eberflus coming in?
For me, I was all in on Matt Nagy. I like the Andy Reid style of coaching. I like that offense. I like the philosophy. In the first year, everything seemed to be going good. It seemed like there was a nice upswing. He
Hmm.
also had Brad Childress as a consultant in the house, who
Mm-hmm.
was, really well schooled in the whole philosophy. But then the next year, Childress was gone. It was really all Nagy's offense at this point, and
Hmm.
it just seemed to struggle. And the offense he had the first year was the best he had in all 4 years. It just was.
Hmm.
It went downhill every year, and and I'm not saying it's because of Childress left, but if you're kind of looking at it and kind of seeing what happened behind the scenes, that might have something to do with it. But he just was a very stubborn head coach.
Hmm.
He gave up play calling at some point, but he gave it up to Bill Lazor, who I
Yeah,
believe
we're familiar with him.
he is out of the league right now, and he was out of the league when Nagy grabbed him. So that,
Yeah.
that might tell you how the league thought about him. So
Yeah.
just it's just I was all in at first, but then after like about 2.5 years, I'm like, yeah, this guy's not the guy. It's time to move on. And I thought they
Hmm.
held on to him and Ryan Pace 1 year too long.
Hmm. And are you in favor of having a defensive-minded coach? Because we kind of have that over here in DC, and it's kind of raising our eyebrows right now.
I wasn't at first. I wanted Brian Dable. I thought he was the
Mm.
guy. I thought it would have made
Mhm.
the most sense. Take an offensive coordinator, an offensive mind, pair him up with Justin Fields. I thought that was the best way to go. But I quickly got on with Coach Flus. He's an old school mentality.
Mhm.
It for Bears fans, we can think back to the Lovie Smith era. He has that same schooling. He's a Tampa 2 guy, although it's no longer the Tampa 2. It's evolved at this point with the way it happened in Chicago.
Mhm.
We kind of saw that with the Colts, how he kind of evolved the defense a little bit. So I'm on board. I mean, he's kind of corny, I guess you want to say, with he has some of the sayings he has, but again, he's an old school guy. You talk about the defense, and one thing he talked about when he was hired was how having that defensive mindset can help a young quarterback, because now the quarterback can find out what a defense is trying to do to stop him. It's a different way to think, but it makes sense, and I think the entire team is kind of bought in on his philosophy.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So let's kind of pivot it into Thursday night's matchup. So I am kind of curious. So Chicago seems to be kind of finding itself, kind of finding its identity under Justin Fields and under this new coaching regime. How would you define the mentality, the identity of the offense? It seems like they're a run first team from what I'm gathering. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah, it's still a run first. I mean, the offensive line, I talked about it up top. They're not the best right now, but
Mm-hmm.
they are much better as a run blocking unit. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
first few weeks this season they did really good. They kind of struggled a bit last week against the Vikings, but then the passing game got going. So
Mm-hmm.
they want to run the ball. I mean, they're going to try and come out and they're going to run probably, when they shouldn't. They're going to run a little too much, but that's what they want to do. I mean, they feel that's their strength. They are missing Cody White here on the offensive line. He's on
Mm-hmm.
IR, so
Mm-hmm.
they got some pieces there that they're kind of replacement level.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're happy with Tevin Jenkins at right guard. He seems to be the mauler there. They're going to try and run the ball behind him, hopefully, and if they can establish their run, then get that play action game and those bootlegs going.
Good. It's good to hear that Tevin Jenkins is actually being successful now because he was kind of he was drafted to be a right tackle from what I understand, correct?
Yeah, he was drafted, and they put him right to left tackle.
Okay.
They cut Charles Leno, who you
Uh,
guys are aware of now. So
exactly.
they got rid of him, which I thought was a terrible move. I thought Leno was a
Hmm.
fine, average left tackle.
Exactly right.
Nothing extravagant, but he's
Yeah.
he's okay.
He's
And
a serviceable starting left tackle. You can put him in there or right tackle, but yeah, you can put him in
yeah, I
there.
mean
Yeah.
he's fine. And then Jenkins just had some issues with injuries last year as a rookie.
Hmm.
The new regime he came in, and I think they wanted to play guard from the start. I don't think he wanted to play guard, so there was some training camp drama going on where he was away from the team for a little while.
Mm,
Nothing was ever said publicly.
I didn't know that.
It was just that there was the team said it was an injury. It was just one of those things where again, you kind of take a look, step back, see what happens. It seemed like he just didn't want to be a guard.
Gotcha.
He's bought into guard now. I think he understands that this is probably his best position in the NFL. Yeah, tackles you traditionally make more money than
Hmm.
guards in the long term, but he's a pretty damn good right guard, and he's finally had his first week to start the whole game last week because he was rotating earlier part of the season with Lucas Patrick, but he's the right guard now. I think that's the way to go.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Chicago, as I noticed, their run game seems pretty stout and it seems pretty impressive. They have David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. What's a split in regard to that ratio, and who would you say would be like the more dynamic back of the two?
I think Herbert has more home run ability, but David Montgomery is a better football player.
Okay.
Like I think we saw when Montgomery was injured and they had Herbert in there, he had some pretty good explosive runs. Even early in the year when Herbert was getting his rotation,
Hmm.
some more explosive runs. But it's not like Montgomery's bad. I mean, against the Packers, David Montgomery had some fantastic runs.
Hmm.
He's more of a if you want to say he's more classic inside zone. Herbert's more classic outside zone.
Okay.
Bears do both, so it's not really that big a deal. I think this last week you didn't see much Herbert. I
Yeah,
think
I saw. I noticed that as well.
part of that was because in the second half it was more pass heavy, and Herbert is not as good of a pass blocker as Montgomery is.
Okay.
Montgomery's a little better receiver out of the backfield as well.
That's what I
So
was noticing as well. Okay.
yeah, I think if all things are equal, if the game script kind of goes how they want to, I think they want like a 60-40 split.
Hmm.
But if it ends up being more pass heavy, then
Hmm.
you probably see more David Montgomery.
Gotcha. Okay. So Chicago seems to be a run first team. David Montgomery's more of a pass catching back, more of a pass blocker. I can see that as well. So let's kind of touch on the passing game. So as we know, Justin Fields is kind of evolving. He seems to be more of he does scramble and he seems like he can create on his feet. There's a great play against the Vikings that got turned back because of
Oh,
block on the back. I saw the huge run over there. Is that
terrible.
something that they ever dive into? Do they actually use like design runs on QBs? Do you more just say scramble when things get chaotic? How does that work with Fields?
Yeah, I think every game there's a couple design runs, whether it's a zone read stuff or a quarterback sweep or a quarterback power. We've seen a couple times, but that's something they will do on occasion. But even going back to his college days, Justin Fields was never a run first quarterback. He's a great athlete. He has legit 4.4 speed.
Hmm.
He wants to be a pocket passer. I mean, if that's what he
Hmm.
can be, that's what he wants to be. Obviously the rollouts, play action, the boots are part of it, but he'll scramble when he has to. And I think earlier in the year, we kind of saw him hold on to the ball a little too long. Something he did last year as well.
Hmm.
Like I said, this last week, it's starting to come together. So hopefully he can build off that because he ran at really good times, and if he can keep that going, I think that's the best thing for him and for the offense.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's gonna be intriguing because Washington's defense has been up and down all season. I don't know if you've been scouting it or looking at it too closely, but beginning of the year, giving up large chunk plays. We actually led the NFL in the most 40-yard chunk plays as the season started. We're starting to become more stout over the past couple games. Our pass rush is starting to come together as well. How does your offensive line? Are they pretty stout in pass blocking? Go ahead. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but go ahead. Go
No, I
ahead.
mean the pass pro. I mean they have a rookie left tackle in Braxton Jones. They have a second year
Hmm.
tackle on the right side in Larry Borum, and both those guys have had their issues.
Hmm.
Sam Mustipher at center he's pretty. He has not given much of a stop to the bull rush. He's just
Hmm.
not. I don't know. Bears fans can't stand Stan Musfer. I mean, I think he's fine. He's okay. He'd be much better as if he was a backup. But so they have a hole at center. Lucas Patrick, who's signed to be your center, he's forced now to play guard with Cody Whitehair out. So there's some issues in pass pro. Plus, like I said, I mentioned Justin Fields. His recognition of the pass pro, getting a set properly. He wasn't seeing the free blitzer earlier in the year against the
Hmm.
Vikings that improved. So again, it's pass pro is a team thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully with Montgomery back, with Fields being more aware of what's going on, the O line now has been playing now. This will be their sixth game. Hopefully they're settling in. It's still not a strength to the team, but the hope is, as Bears fans, hope we can see these guys get to where they're competent at some point. But right now, yeah, that's not a strength to pass blocking.
It's so funny. We're looking into a mirror, Lester. It's gonna be the same thing
Yeah,
going back and forth. I don't know if you actually
yeah,
looked into our thing. I think we gave up 21 sacks on the season, worse in the
yeah.
NFL. It's a turnstile. Carson Wentz holds on to the ball a little bit too long. It's definitely going to be, especially on a Thursday night shortened week. It's going to be interesting to see there. So, I guess one more thing before we touch on the defense. In regard to offense, right? Big plays. Darnell Mooney seems to be that guy. He can get some big plays down, down the field. Is he the primary threat at wide receiver? Is he more of a deep threat? Or is he more of like a possession wide receiver? I saw a couple games recently. I know of him, but
Yeah.
he's more on top of than I am. So how would you describe him?
Yeah, when he was coming out of college, he was known for his speed. He's definitely a speed guy. 4.3, 4.4. He's definitely got the kind of speed, the deep speed. He's 5'10", so he's not the biggest guy.
Gotcha.
He's become a very good route runner.
Hmm.
but the passing game just, has been very disjointed for the Bears so far. I mean, him
Mhm.
and Justin Fields have done a ton of work in the offseason. You
Yeah.
know, we expected them to come in and have like an immediate connection, but even their connection has been off. We saw it in the Viking game. There was a play in the end zone where just it looked like it was a back shoulder throw, but Mooney was going to the corner. So they've been off on a few plays. But the big play potential is there. We just got to see it all come together and just not working very good in unison. And honestly, he's really the only threat. I mean, it's Byron Pringle was signed to be the next guy. He's hurt.
Mhm.
Equanimous St. Brown
He's a
he's
guy.
okay. He's
Yeah.
a guy, and then they have they getting N'Keal Harry back this week from IR. So, but he's not, he's an unknown as well. So, there's some questions there. They did get Bayless Jones Jr., the rookie, back last week as well. He got his first touchdown in the NFL, but
Mhm.
he's a very raw route runner.
Yeah.
Great speed, really good with the ball in his hands, but you can't expect much from him. And then of course at tight end you have Cole Kmet, who's trying to come into his own here. So yeah, the passing game is like it's disjointed. The pass blocking not the best. They're really counting on Justin Fields to elevate things, and that's a lot to ask him.
Yeah, I understand. I guess the very last question on offense was, yeah, I noticed that Justin Fields had, I think, less than 10 completions the first 3, 4 games of the year. So what's the story behind that? I know one of them was the monsoon game or whatever. So I understand that weather plays into effect. Is he inaccurate or like what's going on? What's the big what's the story behind that? The bigger context.
Part of it's just the game flow. I mean, of course, you talked about the 49er game that was horrible weather.
Yeah.
Um, then the Packer game was just kind of the way I mean, the Bears were running, they were averaging like 7 yards a carry.
Okay.
So if your run game is ripping it off like that, I mean, if you go to Luke Getz and say, "Hey, man, why aren't you throwing more pass plays?" He'd be like, "I'm averaging 7 yards a pop of the run." So it's kind of a give or take. So you know, the last couple weeks has kind of flip a little bit. So he does know he has to find more balance. He's talked about it in this press conference with Luke Getzey.
Hmm.
I think it's coming. But I'm just not sure how much they trusted Fields early. I think they're starting to, they're building it together. They're learning to trust each other. They're learning what they can do together. I mean, this is like I said, it's a new regime.
Yeah, 5 games in. Yeah.
It's like I said, the receiving core is kind of like, who are these guys? The pass pro is kind of sketchy. So, you know, and of course, when they want to lean on the run, it's a defensive minded head coach. The run game sets everything up for them. So if they get that clicking a little bit, maybe they'll trust Justin Fields to put the ball up in the air.
And then Lester, maybe I'm missing something. Why aren't they building around Justin Fields? Why didn't they invest in wide receiver or draft one high? Is that an area contention in Chicago or what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean the Bears went with the first two draft picks. They went cornerback, they went safety. There were a
Okay.
lot of guys Bears fans wanted. George Pickens, Alec Pierce. There was
Mm,
plenty of guys there that Bears fans wanted to get. They talked about they were staying true to the board. They wanted
yeah,
to get the best players on their board, and they were excited to get Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. And those two
I
guys
like
are
Brisker a lot too. I want to talk
Brisker's
about him.
awesome.
Hmm.
Gordon's he's got potential, but yeah, I mean and then of course offensive line they didn't really do too much. They drafted like four guys on day three. One of those guys are starting. They just I think they thought they would be a little better than they were. I mean, obviously in
Hmm.
hindsight, you would like to have seen them do something. They signed a couple of veterans towards the end of camp. Riley Reef, who is, has been able to crack a lineup. Michael
Hmm.
Schofield, who they actually cut, and then they brought him back. But yeah, they gotta do something on the line, and it's not going to be just these guys getting better because I think we know who they are.
Gotcha. All right, so let's kind of pivot to the defense. So, how would you describe the identity of Chicago? Are they more of a blitz-heavy team? Do they generate a lot of pressure? From what I saw, the secondary seems pretty stout for the most part. Eddie Jackson's pretty strong safety. Jalen Johnson's kind of having a good year as well. Roquan Smith, it seems to be kind of struggling this year. Is that true? Like, I was kind of surprised by that. I don't know if you. I mean, he's a dominant linebacker, but just looking at from the box scores, is what
Box
I'm
score
looking at.
scouting,
Yeah,
yeah.
but go ahead. What do you got?
Roquan's first few weeks, he was kind of down. I think again, we're talking about the offensive scheme. This is a new scheme for the defense too.
Hmm.
The Bears were a three-man front. The last few years with Vic Fangio, Sean Desai. It was a different style of defense they're playing. Now they're going to a 4-3. And like I
Hmm.
said, it has Tampa 2 principles. It's a one gap scheme up front,
Hmm.
so it's
Hmm.
different. Roquan Smith is not playing middle. He's not playing the weak side linebacker spot, so it's new for him.
Gotcha.
But he's
Interesting to
coming
know.
on. Like I said, the first few weeks he seemed a little out of sorts. Plus, he missed all training camp. He had a hold in, so it could have been
Hmm.
a little bit him working himself back into shape. But the last few weeks he's been really active. Um, there's some issues there. I mean, they can't stop the run very good right now. The secondary is okay. Jalen Johnson missed the last 2 games, and the Bears were torched because of that. But
Hmm.
Jalen Johnson is back. He's full participant in practice this week, so he should be back as starting corner. Um, Kendall Vildor, who Bears fans wanted out of town last year, he is a better fit for the zone-based defense. So he's actually looked
Okay.
pretty good. Kyler Gordon's kind of playing both corner and the nickel. He's kind of doing both as a rookie, which I think is maybe too much for his plate. But
Yeah.
again, he's coming along a little bit. And then you mentioned Eddie Jackson at safety. He's back to being the Eddie Jackson of old. He already has 3 picks this year.
Hmm.
Uh, Brisker is a rookie. Good physical presence.
Like
Good in
Briscoe.
coverage. So yeah, he's been playing good so far for the Bears too.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Yeah. So, speaking of which, you talked about the run defense, right? So I've been watching this film, doing some background information. I saw that they struggled against the Vikings. I saw they struggled against the Giants. But, is that more a testament to Dalvin Cook being an excellent athlete and Saquon Barkley bouncing back? Or is that more of like, this is a hole in the defense for the Bears? What are you seeing over there?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, those guys are
Okay.
really good backs, but the Packers gashed them pretty good. The Texans. I don't think Pierce got 100 yards, but he was close.
Hmm.
Um, they're just not a very good run defense right now. They're kind of missing some size up front. Like I said, I mentioned it's a different scheme, so they're playing a bunch of one gap stuff. So in the Tampa too, I mean, if you're not if
Yeah,
you're
no, exactly
not
what we're talking about.
if you're not in your gap, there's
Hmm.
going to be holes somewhere, and it
Hmm.
seems like there's been too many plays this year where there's just one guy not in the right place, and that can mess everything up. Because
100%.
especially if the back finds it with the cutback. So that's been what happening this year. But I mean, like I said, Roquan Smith's been chased pretty good. Nick Morrow's at the mic. He's a really active player as well. So those linebackers have to clean some of that stuff up, but it all starts up front. And those 4 guys aren't able to hold their gaps. It makes it hard.
We're exactly with you. So in Washington, we had a 2 gap scheme, especially with Deron Payne. It was like more of like a zero technique or one technique, like right of the nose guard. Had the 2 gap system, and then we converted to a 1 gap system, kind of getting upfield. And if you're not gap disciplined, there's leaves
Yeah.
wide open holes, and people explode right through there. So it's going to be interesting. We have Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson came back. Antonio Gibson, I actually put a tweet up earlier. He averages 3.2 yards per carry. I think he averages 32 yards per game. He should be more explosive than what he is. So it'll be interesting if Washington tries to put that down. But our offensive line is definitely an issue. We can talk about that on the inverse of this whole conversation in a moment. I guess going back, so Roquan Smith is doing pretty well. Jaquan Brisker, I loved him. I actually wanted him in the second round for ourselves from Penn State. Is he playing pretty well? Is he smooth transition over there? How's it going over there?
Yeah, it was funny because like I was at training camp and he just from the start. I mean, he was the starter from the start,
Yeah.
and the way he's used. I mean, I know Eddie Jackson talked about he's glad Brisker's there because Brisker can play more in the box. He's more of a
Hmm.
physical presence, kind of like
Yeah.
what they had with Adrian Amos a few years back. It's a
Yeah,
better
exactly.
pairing. That's not to say that's all Brisker is because the Bears have also used him quite a bit. Up in coverage. He's up
Hmm.
in the box, but he's there to cover. We've seen the Bears use him kind of on the outside coverage as well. So they like Brisker's versatility. He can do a
Hmm.
little bit of everything for the Bears, and he is coming into his zone, and that's a pretty good draft pick for the Bears.
100%. I think the only reason Washington kind of overlooked him is we have Cameron Curl. I don't know if you scattered our team yet at all, but he's actually pretty good, strong
Yeah,
safety. He's pretty versatile, can cover out the backfield. So I think they overlooked him. We drafted Phil Mathis from Alabama as our defensive tackle. He gets his ACL torn in the first game. We're kind of out of deficit ever since then. Before we kind of pivot, you can ask me any questions if you'd like as well. How are you feeling going into this game? Like, are you feeling pretty confident? Do you think, what would be the winning formula in your opinion for Chicago?
yeah. The Bears got to run the ball. If they can establish the run, they get Montgomery and Herbert cooking. Kind of be really physical up front, kind of help slow down some of those pass rushers. Like you said, you guys have a pretty good pass rush. That'll help Justin Fields. I think it's going to be it's on Justin Fields ultimately. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league. He's got to make some plays here for you. But if you can get the run game going, the Bears want to play defense. If your quarterback's a little dinged up, which it seems like he is, that's
Hmm.
going to obviously play into the Bears' favor. So like I said at the top, I mean, it's a game the Bears could win. I'm not sure the line was going like -1 +1 pick 'em this whole week so far. So,
Hmm.
who knows which way it will go. I would not be surprised with a loss. I would not be surprised with a win. I just hope it's better than that last Thursday night game we saw.
That's awful, right? It's one of the worst
Terrible. It
one of
was
the
the
worst games of the
worst.
season. It's totally
Yeah.
awful. Um, I guess a question I love asking people from outside of the market. What's the national perception of the Commanders? You can be honest with me. Like, what do you guys think in Chicago when you hear about the Commanders? I'm gonna leave it at that. You can go any direction you want with it. So what do you? What's the perception out there?
Well, I mean, a lot of it starts, with the quarterback. I mean, Carson Wentz. I mean, it's he's kind of been failed a couple times now, and it's like, when you guys made that decision, I like your backup. I think he's a pretty good quarterback there. I don't know why he
Heineke?
does. Yeah, I don't know why doesn't he ever get a chance? Like, what's going on there? Is he just is he not consistent enough to get an actual chance? I mean, or what's going on with him? I was going to ask you.
I think the critique with him is that he is kind of undersized and he also doesn't have a major arm strength. So if he went to ODU, he's from a small college. He actually
Yeah,
his thing is like his moxie. His thing is he can improv.
yeah,
He can basically scramble. He had 20 touchdowns, 15 picks last year. He definitely would thrive under our offensive line because it's actually really weak. We actually gave up 20 sacks so far this year, 9 against I believe it was the Eagles or the Lions. We have a 15 sacks in 2 weeks. It was awful. So
terribly.
it's actually been better recently. So imagine 2 more sacks than what the Bears have. So imagine how we're feeling over here. And people are kind of clamoring for Heineke or Sam Howell because you have them on the bench as well to kind of generate and create on their own. But I think the whole rationale now is we invested in Carson Wentz. We traded 2 third-round picks, one that could potentially be a second-round pick next year. I think they kind of want to see it through for a little while. And you seem like a pretty astute NFL fan. We basically, for him, he needs to get a 70% threshold of playing time. And
I saw that today.
if Carson Wentz does that, then basically we're going to lose a second rounder. So
Yeah.
the talk in DC is that we're going to kind of roll him out for a little while. And then basically, if he doesn't actually do well by week 13, maybe pull him out and put Sam Howell in. So we'll see. It's been messy. I don't know if you've been keeping track of it, but like we have off the field issues this week. Like, who does it? It's a Commander staple, but we basically, we had Ron Rivera kind of throw Carson Wentz's name in the mud the other day. And we just have a lot going on going into this game. So any other questions? Feel free.
Yeah, I mean
Way.
I mean that's for sure. That's Chico, man. He, that guy will speak from the heart. He'll say what he has to say, and I know a lot of Bears fans wanted him as their head coach at some point. It just never kind of worked out for that. He was, of course, in Chicago as as a player, and then of course as an assistant coach, and a lot of Bears fans still like him. And of course, he had the whole thing with cancer, for a while. So it's like, there's a soft spot in a lot of Bears fans' hearts for Ron Rivera.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, exactly. From the 1985 Bears, he was a
Bears,
yeah, he's iconic for you guys. But yeah, so for us, people kind of think that he is kind of has an older mindset, more of like a traditionalist. They think he's more of a defensive-minded coach. They kind of wish we had more offensive upside. We have Scott Turner, who came from Carolina over to DC. He needs to be more creative. We have Curtis Samuel, who actually averages 7 yards per carry when he rushes the ball. We haven't been seeing that recently. And honestly, we played against the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Lions, pretty aggressive fronts, and they basically just threw everything in disarray. We didn't even have 100 yards in the first half of the past couple games, and then most recently we had a great game against the Titans. We had over 350 yards passing with Carson Wentz, but he throws that crucial interception to end the game, and now everything around here is fire Ron Rivera, get rid of Carson Wentz. That's the vibe. I don't know if you're hearing that in Chicago yet, but that's what we got going on over here.
Well, is Carson Wentz in danger? I mean, I know he's on he has a shoulder issue. Is he in danger of not playing this game on Thursday?
No, he's definitely going to play. I think it's kind of more like, I think he has a sore shoulder. They just put him on the injury reports to kind of just to have it out there. Just kind of being honest and transparent with the NFL. But I think he's going to play. I think the one thing that's kind of interesting is William Jackson. I don't know if you've followed him at all or know who he is. He was a cornerback from the Bengals. He had a very great early career, a big free agent signing for us coming over to Washington. He plays primarily in the man technique, but then we play more of a zone defense. So he came over and had a rough transition. And against the Cowboys, he's had some crucial back-breaking pass interference calls. And we kind of had one of those Tevin Jenkins moments where basically he got benched, and it was like William Jackson said it was his back, and Ron Rivera said, we're going to bench. He pretty much was benched. So there's a disconnect there. So that's something else to kind of keep your eye on. So that's our cornerback one potentially on the bench. But I guess to throw you guys, your listeners a bone, people to look out for is number 25, Benjamin St-Juste. He's a cornerback, up-and-coming guy. He's pretty solid. So he might take over on the boundary for William Jackson, and Kendall Fuller's our other corner. But they haven't been airtight. They've been doing decently, but they always give up one big play a game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Darnell Mooney kind of gets one deep later on this game. So we'll see.
I was doing some because obviously the trade deadline's coming up, and I saw something that Kendall Fuller could be on the block. Are you guys looking to move him?
I think if anything, it'd be William Jackson. I think Kendall
Okay.
Fuller, we kind of like him. He's a local guy. He's from like Olney, Maryland. He's like 20 minutes from the stadium. So I think he's
That's Kyle Fuller's brother, right?
exactly right, 100%.
Former
Yep.
Bear, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Fullers actually.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Fuller's actually pretty solid. I'd say he's about a B. I mean, he kind of he got peaks frustration around here in DC because he covers like well for like 80% of the game and gives up some big hits later on. But William Jackson's owed $15.6 million next year. There's an out on his contract at the end of the season where he'd have a $9 million dead cap, and they might cut him at the end of the season, but they might explore him. But I don't know. It's the water's in the boat here in DC, and hopefully we can kind of get some more, get it out of here and have a good game this week. We'll see.
So you guys looking to rebuild when the season's over? Or you guys like if they do get rid of Chico? I mean, obviously you're going to have to make some changes there. The quarterback Wentz is, he's just a guy. So you
Yeah,
guys going to be a full on rebuild in 2023 for Washington here?
we'll see what happens, Lester. It's been crazy because I think the expectations are not meeting basically what happened, right? So going in, obviously, we brand new name, new jerseys, new expectations, and things just kind of went to hell. Basically, 1-4. Our division's on fire. Our division
Yeah,
is
what's
four
going
four.
on? Yeah,
It's unbelievable. Since we're similar in age, growing up, the NFC East was awesome. NFC Beast,
yeah.
Black and Blue division was great, and then now they're doing awesome. Now it's 5-0, 4-1, 4-1, then 1-4. They didn't even bring us up in the conversation. So I think it depends. If we lose to I think in DC the vibe is that this is a potential winnable game. This and the Colts, we have
Yeah.
the slight glimmer of actually re-salvaging our season. If not, everything's going to go to hell and everything's going to burn. So like if you guys win, just know that's going to be ugly over here in DC. It's not going to be positive at all. So
So,
that's
so
kind
what
of
you're saying is if the Bears pull it off, I should find a book and get that Ron
the
Rivera next
Ron
coach
Rivera.
fired bet. Okay, all right.
I
I'll
agree.
keep that in mind there.
I'll be surprised if he gets fired during the middle of the season. Though we have like a coach centric approach where he kind of like where like he picked the GM, he picked Marty Hearn, and he picked
Oh,
Martin
that's
Mayhew.
right.
Yeah, so he picked them. But like honestly, it's a good brain trust, but it's more of a dated brain trust. And I think it's not forward thinking. I think people kind of are dated by that. My whole narrative with Ron Rivera is that he was the right guy to kind of stabilize our team and to make our team professional because there were so many, scandals and bad culture going on behind the scenes. But I never thought he was the guy like the Sean McVay or the Kyle Shanahan to take it to the next level. So I don't know if he's going to pivot. I don't know if he's going to move into the front office or anything like that. But it's not looking good. The Carson Wentz marriage isn't looking good. Ron Rivera is getting heat in the media all the time, and I'm sure you guys see it in Chicago when there's blood in the water, things start happening, right? So we got that there.
That's crazy. I know when the Bears had Trestman a few years back, they brought in John Fox, same mentality, a retread coach. He
Yeah,
was coming in to kind of just right the ship, right the culture. That's kind of where it is with you guys. So that's kind of interesting to hear that. It's kind of a
gotcha.
mirror image of each franchise there.
100%. Let me ask you one or two more questions. I know you probably have to go. I'll ask you more of a serious question, more of a silly question. Serious question: Soldier Field. I heard potentially by move the stadium. How do you feel about that, or what's the latest on that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going to happen. It's going to be at some point they're going to go to Arlington Heights, which is a suburb.
Hmm.
I've never been a big go to the stadium guy.
Yeah.
Especially Chicago, it's like it's harder to get to. It's a little complicated as far as where the stadium is. It's
Hmm.
beautiful where it is. I mean, it's right on the lakefront, but
Yeah, I've been
you
there. It's
know,
beautiful. It's awesome. Great
for me,
stadium.
man, let's go to Arlington Heights, go to the suburbs, make a nice state of the art stadium. Right now, Soldier Field is the smallest stadium in the NFL. So,
Hmm.
let's get something big, something that can actually attract people, build the area up around with some nice hotels. So for me, I'd probably go to a couple games if it was in the suburbs.
Interesting. Okay, we're going through the same dynamic now. I don't know if you guys have heard that on your end, but we're looking at FedEx Field as a pretty dated stadium. It was built in '99. You guys actually have been renovating and updating yours. Obviously, it's more historic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's things haven't been going well for us. We looked at actually trying to build a stadium probably in the suburbs with the whole casinos and the hotels around it, and it's just hard to do. Like I think people are kind of watching this whole Congress stuff with Dan Snyder and not really knowing whether to basically
Yeah.
buy in and side on that horse over there. So we see that. And then last but not least, you guys are wearing bright orange jerseys on Thursday.
The
you,
orange helmets
yeah, the
too.
orange helmets too,
Oh,
and it's kind of funny. I wonder how we're going to play this out. So I don't know, like, if we wear our burgundy jerseys, it's going to be the orange and burgundy, like Reese's Pieces game over there. And if we wear black, might be Halloween. So we'll see how that goes. How do you feel about these color rush jerseys? Are you a big fan or not?
you know, I I don't like the orange jerseys. I
Okay.
wasn't a big fan. And when they announced the orange helmet, I'm like, why are they putting orange helmets? But then when I was at camp, they actually had an orange helmet on display. And I got to admit, it looks pretty cool when you see it up close when
Yeah.
it's right there. But, I mean, I don't know. I like the traditional Bears jersey. I like a few years ago they had what they called the Monsters of the Midway jersey. It was like the all navy, the
With
block
the or
letters. I like that style a little
Mhm.
better. The orange just seems too corny to me. It's like they're trying too hard. It's like plus the orange is just not a good primary color. It's a nice secondary color, but man, I don't want to see that as the primary.
It's not very flattering when you put it on, right?
No,
So
it just doesn't look very nice.
very good. All right. Last thing. So predictions, or you want to throw me a bone there? Or you want to kind of bite your tongue on it? Like, what do you think the Bears are going to win? Or how are you feeling?
Let's call it a 24-21 Bears. But like I said, I
Okay.
would not be surprised either way. I think there's a good chance for both offenses to get a little right here. So, if we're lucky, like I said, it's a better game than last week.
Hmm.
Just entertain me. That's what I want to see. I want to have a nice, fun game. And if they lose, but it was fun. That's what this season's all about for Chicago.
100%. Okay, cool. And Lester, keep me in your thoughts because basically my wife's grandfather is coming into town. He wants to watch the game with me because he knows I'm a diehard Commanders fan. So we'll see what the hell happens as a result of that. So thank you. All right, Lester, to wrap it up, tell people where they can find you on Twitter, what kind of work projects you're working on, what's upcoming. So
Yeah, you can
let's have it.
find me on Twitter at Wiltfong Jr. Of course, right all my rights at Windy City Gridiron, part of SB Nation's network. We have a podcast channel as well, Windy City Gridiron. But then, of course, we got a video channel now this year too, Second City Gridiron. A little different branding, but we got a lot of cool stuff on there. All of our podcasts go up there, but we also got a lot of X's and O's stuff as well. Tonight, we're actually doing a huge Chicago Bears X's and O's breakdown. One of our guys does like a 5-hour live stream.
That's
It's
awesome.
ridiculous. He pops up the all 22. It's interactive. So if you have any fans of Washington want to pop in and ask him questions about the Bears scheme, he'll be there all night answer questions.
That sounds awesome. I think Lester, appreciate that. So thank you for your time. Listeners, you guys know I'm George Carmi. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Full Press Commanders. Have a great night. Peace out, guys. Take care.